Hey there, fellows! Coming at you once again with a very curious experiment. So right here I've got an engine, which we'll be using for... Well, I've been reading a bunch of comments lately to the effect of... I tried copper treating my engine, I brought it back to life, boosted the compression. Some say you gotta pour it in the liquid for mothers in powder, and that after 15,000 kilometers the engine will be like new. So instead of just talking about it, I suggest we do the following. We measure the compression, the oil pressure, tear the engine apart to see how worn the internals are, and then we get to trying that recipe. Honestly, I have zero good information on the subject, but I am very curious to learn about it, see how it works. In this episode, we'll try it out and see whether there's anything to it. Alright, let's get to it. We've got a special merch offer for you, fellas, to brighten the mood in these turbulent times. Starting today, we'll be offering a mystery gift box. When purchasing the box, you're guaranteed to receive a certain selection of stuff from our shop, as well as the chance to win something big. You spend a fixed $30 price for the box, and you're guaranteed to receive a Garage 54 mug, a pair of socks, a sticker, an air freshener for your car, as well as a key fob. 1 out of 10 buyers will be sent an expensive gift on top of that, which could be a cap, t-shirt, hoodie, or a document holder. So we'll be putting something expensive into 1 out of every 10 boxes. If you'd like to support our channel and try your luck, there's gonna be a link in the video description. So first we gotta warm it up and measure everything we need to. That is oil pressure and compression, which is what we are trying to increase. It's a miracle. It's making a ton of noise, but what matters is that it does work. Even at idle. This is always the case. You want to find a motor that is on the verge of death, but this one runs fantastic. Okay, so the engine is now slightly warm. Let's start by measuring the oil pressure. Right, this needs to be screwed in. Looking good. Fired up. Let's see where the oil pressure is at. Just what we need, people. Look at how much oil pressure we got at idle. It's pretty much non-existent. Switch it off. That's unfortunate. I was expecting it to be alright with how it runs. But as a matter of fact, we're at 0. Screw it, that makes it even better. I mean, the whole point of this experiment is to find out whether copper can make an engine feel better. The way I see it, well, I'd imagine the clearances would shrink, and that would 100% boost the compression. We'll find that out in due time, but now it's time to check the compression. 6. Now cylinder number 2. Same story. Let's go. It's about the same. Okay, number 4. Six again. Well, it's good we have even compression. That would explain the smooth and even engine operation. That's because the compression is the same across the board. On a Lada motor, this would warrant a rebuild. Anyway, the oil pressure is 0, and the compression is 6 in all 4 cylinders. And so now the task at hand would be to tear the engine apart, examine the internals, and I mean have a good look at them. Then we copper treat them, assemble the engine, start it, and do this all over again. to see whether this kind of treatment is at all effective. This will take us a bit of time, you'll see it happen like that, and we'll see where this goes. Let's do this. Things are slowly coming together, look. You would have just seen how we went about the copper treatment, and this is all looking very good. I can barely hear any knocking. I mean, there has to be like some microscopic margin. Anyway, we also coppered the cylinders, given that there were scratches on the walls. Same goes for the crank, but you've already seen all of that. And so now, any evidence of wear, scratches, craters and whatnot, it's all filled with copper now. Now there's the matter of assembling the motor, which we should make quick work of. And then comes the most important and crucial test of all. We don't know if there will be any effect. Why don't you pause the video and share your thoughts on whether this is going to help or not. We are in a really good spot here. The engine is fully assembled and placed onto a stand. Here's the radiator. The only real problem is that we don't have a cooling fan of any type, but then we do have a water supply, since we are in the washing bay. So we can always spray some cold water onto the radiator to keep the engine nice and cool. Okay, let's go ahead and fire it up, allow it to run for 60 to 90 minutes, that's to break it in. Then we switch it off, let it cool down for a bit, and then we check the oil pressure and measure the compression, and see how effective this whole coppering thing is. Will it make this engine feel better? Okay, now we fire it up and wait. And keep track of it to make sure it doesn't overheat. Now, you know what? We're super curious to see how that affected the oil pressure, and so we're gonna check it right now. We want to see if it got any better. The revs seem to be too low. Whoa, look at that. Nah, man, don't touch the gas. Well, guys, here's what seems to be happening. The pressure is still at 0, but as soon as you give it a tiny bit of gas, the pressure immediately starts to rise. Before, you had to give it a lot of throttle for it to increase. So this might have actually worked after all. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Now we're gonna let it run for a bit, and then we'll check the compression. Wow, it seems to have gone up slightly. Just a tiny bit. Right? What do you think? We'll leave it be for now. The oil is circulating, apparently. We have lubrication, and that's good. So it's been running for some time, and yeah, it did need a bit of help from us to cool down. So now the temperature is about the same as it was during the first round, and we can do a compression test. See if anything changed. Go for it. Oh wow. Stop. It definitely used to be 6. Now it's 7. Holy cow. Now we do cylinder number 2. That's enough. Let's call it a bit under 7. I'd say it's about 6.8. Let's go. That'll do. About the same. Now it's cylinder 4's turn. And to think you didn't want to do it. Go for it. Stop. That's a solid 7. What do you know? It is now at 7. It used to be 6 in all of them. The compression was even. And now we're seeing an extra kilogram. So 7, 6.8, 6.8, and 7 again. Holy cow. So all of those scratches we saw on the cylinder walls, despite even the copper layer being so... It is very thin, but it appears to have done something. The increased compression tells us that all of the scratches, pits and craters and whatnot, they have been filled, and this is the result. And that in turn can only mean that the copper treatment actually works. It did give us a slight improvement. We saw an obvious increase in the compression. That I can tell you 107%. And though the difference isn't that dramatic, but the compression is still as even as it used to be. The question is whether that'll be a long-lasting effect. That is an unknown. Okay, now that we've measured the compression, let's check the oil pressure once again. It just sprayed me with something. I guess it would have been naive to think that coppering can resurrect an engine and spare you having to do a rebuild. There's no such thing as miracles. Well, this is where we're at. The pressure is the same. Can you give it some gas, please? I said give it some gas. What did you switch it off for? That's not gonna help. This didn't increase the oil pressure at all. And there you have it. This did have an effect on the compression. We saw an obvious increase. So at least there's that. However, coppering the cam or the crankshaft, and those are parts that do affect the oil pressure. Together with the oil pump drive, of course. Yo, did you copper the oil pump drive? Oh, you did. So we even coppered that, a part that can cause the oil pressure to be low. And yet still. I mean, it worked to some extent, but in some areas we got no results. I mean, granted, this would have been a fairy tale come true if it did work. Doesn't work like that, unfortunately. This sort of copper treatment is not gonna make the engine brand new. If you really want to increase the pressure, you gotta do an engine rebuild. If you do a bit of polishing and grinding, throw in a new set of bearings, after that the engine will most definitely work well. You'll have decent oil pressure and everything. But hey, at least we boosted the compression. Curious how long that's gonna last. The engine is still operational, so we'll definitely think of something else we can do with it. Right? Fit it to some car? And we can do another compression test after we thrash it for a while. All of the numbers are written out on the valve cover. In the meantime, I don't see the point of tearing the engine apart. The increase in compression tells us all we need to know, albeit the oil pressure is the same. It used to be at 0 and it still is. You guys are free to draw your own conclusions on whether this is even worth doing. There you go. And that's all I got for you. Watch us, send in your suggestions, comment, give us a big thumbs up. All right, catch you later.